Milo Yiannopoulos.
Milo Yiannopoulos.
Milo Yiannopoulos.
Milo Yiannopoulos.
Milo Yiannopoulos.
Milo Yiannopoulos.
Milo Yiannopoulos. Misogynist, racist, troll, and transphobic.
Life comes at you fast. In the span of 48 hours, Milo Yiannopoulos has fallen from grace in the eyes of many.
Controversy surrounding Milo Yiannopoulos' recent podcast comments that seem to condone gay sex between underage teen boys and older men.
It's a Greek tragedy indeed. Somebody decided the time to dethrone Queen Milo had arrived.
They got him. They got Milo.
It's just like political assassination is what it is.
A huge amount of bullshit.
Trust nothing from these charlatans.
It is simply a continuation of this. This is simply coming from a different political faction and one with which Milo was, at least previously, trying to appeal.
That's what 50 Shades of Darker and, all this crap's about. As long as you're not hurting somebody, that's your issue. It's your free speech. It's your life. Doesn't mean I endorse what you're doing. The self-mutilation, the cutting your own arms and legs off, your own genitals off.
I don't care if you have a dwarf orgy.
Has anything really changed? Trump won, but here we are, we lose our livelihoods because of an opinion, not because of action, because of words. It makes me wonder how much progress the dissident movement has really made if they're doing this to Milo.
This is me saying that the media does not play fair.
Oh my God, the press don't play fair. Said without irony in defence of a guy who used to write for Breitbart. Jesus fucking Christ. Hello there, hello there, hello there, and welcome to episode 35 of The Descent of Man-osphere. The series where I take you through the ways in which the manosphere and its utterly disgusting, and on this occasion dare I say, deplorable inhabitants are trying to reverse human evolution and drag us all back into the fucking sea. And today, we're not dealing with an individual so much as we're dealing with the events surrounding a persona from the manosphere and the reactions to those events by his fellow manospherians. I am, of course, talking about the implosion of the career of one Milo Yiannopoulos. Now, before we get into the actual story, a few boring bits of explanatory shite up front, just to get it out of the way to set up the context and all the rest of it for this video. Now, as you will have heard in the intro and in the upcoming compilation bits that you regular viewers will be aware of, you will potentially hear some recognisable voices, because what I've got some of my friends to do is read articles about the Milo situation and then put them as part of those compilations. But they are read verbatim, and you'll see it come up on the screen as The Spectator or Return of Kings or Infowars or whatever, right? The actual organisations who published those pieces. And I did that because I didn't want there to be too much reading involved in all of this. There is some with tweets and things, but I didn't want there to be too much, and this is something I did in the previous episode of this series where I got Dr. Christy Winters to read a Paul Elam article and responded to that, because then it fits in with the format of this show. So that's that, okay? And thank you enormously to all the people who read articles for this episode. Their channels and stuff are linked below. Please go and check them out. They're fucking awesome. And secondly, this isn't necessarily a Milo video per se, in the way that it would be if it was, Milo Yiannopoulos' episode of this series, in the way that, individuals get their own episode. This is a special about the events surrounding Milo's sort of career crash. So there may be an individual episode for Milo at some point in the future, but there might not be, because I'm not sure about whether he's going to be particularly relevant going forward after this. But there might be an episode, or there might not be. And finally, just a quick editorial note here about the tone and focus of this episode, okay? Because we are dealing with a man in Milo Yiannopoulos who, as a child, was subject to child sexual abuse. So I will at no point be mocking or attacking him for that. And I won't be allowing people to do so in the comment section below here as well, okay? I'm usually very free and open with my comment section, but this is a very serious topic. This is your fucking warning. You've had fair warning here. Don't be a prick. Having said all that, and acknowledged the fact that he is a victim of child sexual assault, he has also said some things which are fucking disgusting. And we will be analysing that, and I will be attacking him for that, and I will be mocking him where appropriate. However, many of Milo's supporters, and there are still people who continue to support him, I know it's almost like they're tribalistic dickheads rather than, actual human beings with decency and respect and all the rest of it. They have asked that Milo be treated with kid gloves and sensitivity, But the problem with that is that for Milo, that ship sailed a very long time ago.
But I don't give a fuck about your feelings.
Be quite honest with you, fuck your feelings.
Yeah, Milo has taken great delight, and indeed built a career off of causing annoyance, frustration and pain to many, many people, including members of marginalised and vulnerable groups, including, of course, outing a trans person and forcing her to have to leave university, and potentially threatening anyway to dox illegal immigrants in America, therefore fucking up their lives completely, and all of that, okay? So I will not be treating him with kid gloves. I will not be giving him the sensitivity that he has given nobody else. I will be serving Milo his just desserts. I think I owe it to the subject matter at hand, to myself and to my audience to do that. I hope everyone understands that, but if not, this is your opportunity to click off, okay? Because that's just the way it is. So thank you for listening to all that boring shite. Let's actually get into the situation, as it were. Now, I know many of you will have seen the offensive clips which ultimately brought down Milo's career, but for those who haven't, or for those who want to refresh their minds or whatever, what follows is a clips package of those, at least some of those offensive comments, from his appearances on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast and the Drunken Peasants podcast.
We're talking about 1325, 1328. These things do happen perfectly consensually. This arbitrary and oppressive idea of consent, which totally destroys, the understanding that many of us have of the complexities and subtleties and complicated nature of many relationships. People are messy and complex, and actually, in a homosexual world particularly, some of those relationships between younger boys and older men, the sort of coming-of-age relationships, the relationships in which those older men help those young boys to discover who they are and give them security and safety and provide them with love and a reliable and sort of a rock where they can't. Just like I said earlier, if it weren't for Father Michael, I would have given far less good head. I mean,
there was a real Father Michael?
So much less.
Just a fucking creep getting his dick sucked, then.
He's gonna get lynched now.
How's he gonna get lynched? Do people know who he is?
I don't think so.
What's his name?
Well, I'm not saying anymore.
Well, how old were you at the time? You were a little kid, and he was like what?
You're trying to.
Was he in his 20s or 30s?
Yet another feminist strategy that you have adopted in addition to your language policing.
Trying to out pedophiles?
No, trying to go on this.
You were the one who was anti-pedophile earlier.
I told you it wasn't the pedophilia. I was after I lost my virginity. I was in my teens. I was in my teens.
14.
I was in my teens. Something like that.
That's what you said. 14 is pedophilia, buddy. I don't know how they rock it in merry old England.
I was in my teens.
Over here in my country, and fucking where you are right now,
You've never seen a 15-year-old girl at any point in your life, however old you were, you've never seen a 15-year-old girl you thought was hot?
Yeah, when I was 15.
No, when you were 25. When you were 25.
I'm not retarded, dude.
When you were 25, when you were 30, you will have seen girls about 15 you thought were hot.
No,
of course
I thought they were
you did.
little kids.
No, you didn't.
I thought, damn, she's going to be hot, but I didn't want to fuck her.
Bullshit.
Not bullshit at all. Look, you can't tell me what I was born into.
I think if you're 14...
Born like this.
You were born this way. You were born a dreary nitpicker.
No, you're trying to make it so I'm a fucking creeper like you.
No,
I'm not into 14-year-olds. How dare you, sir? No.
I'm not into 14-year-olds.
Well, that
Don't
fucking
put this
guy
on
that
me.
you said's a great guy. He was into 14-year-olds.
Fantastic.
Yeah, he's a terrible person.
No.
He certainly was.
I was a very mature 14-year-old.
Yeah. Well, in your case, he got it right. You got the right guy to molest.
It wasn't molestation.
That's absolutely molestation.
It wasn't molestation. It was perfectly consensual.
I don't think it is when they're 14.
When I was 14, trust me, I was the predator. I was the predator.
You were the predator. You were chasing after the priest.
The instigator.
He was trying to stay close to God.
I was chasing everybody. I was aggressively seeking out sexual company of adults because I knew it would horrify people. Because I wanted sort of power over them. It was my way of rebelling. My way of rebelling. I was the predator at 14. Let me tell you.
Do you think that's what's going on with that guy who directed X-Men? Bunch of
Bryan Singer.
Yeah, a bunch of 14-year-old predators going after that poor man.
I'm not sure it's the case with him. No.
That's a guy.
You know, I lived in Hollywood a while ago.
Did you?
Briefly. And,
did you go to one of his parties?
I went to other people who I won't name of a similar stature in Hollywood. I went to their boat parties and to their house parties and things, and some of the things I have seen have beggared belief.
Yeah? Can you give us like a...
Well, just... I don't want to be indiscreet about specific people.
Right, you don't have to do that.
It's going
just dance
to be,
around the facts.
Yeah, dangerous. But I can tell you the truth without dropping anyone in it.
Okay.
I mean, some of the boys there were very young. very young.
And this is really recently?
I don't remember. No, like, I don't know, 8 years ago. I don't remember.
Statute of limitations.
I don't remember whether I ever met Bryan Singer or whether I even knew who he was then. But I knew other people of similar stature, as I say, and there were some very young boys around at that time. There was a lot of drugs and a lot of
twinks.
A lot of twinks taking drugs and having unsafe sex with older men, and some of these boys were very young.
Yeah, that's some pretty unsettling shit, isn't it? Protecting the identities of child rapists does not speak well to one's character. Anyway, the worst part of that for me was the Hollywood parties thing. He describes the very, very young boys. Considering Milo doesn't think that 13 is very, very young, how young are we talking there? Like 11? 10? Are we talking single figures? I mean, what the fuck? Considering he doesn't think 13 is very young, how young is very young? I mean, personally, that fucking turns my stomach with how disgusting it is. But Milo seems absolutely unmoved by the plight of those victims. Didn't go to the police at the time. Refuses to name names and all the rest of it. It's all very fucking disgusting. But anyway, let's move on, shall we? Now, for those who don't know, I'll give you a brief outline of this whole story and how it developed and all the rest of it. A noted conservative arsehole, I mean, they call him provocateur, but I call him an arsehole, because that's what he is. Milo Yiannopoulos, in late February 2017, tapes emerged, they emerged, and I'll get onto that in a moment, of him defending paedophilia or hebephilia, because they like to mess about with semantics about child rape rather than, actually fucking condemning it within the manosphere, because they're fucking scum. But anyway, all of that stuff you just saw of him, defending the identity of pedophiles and all of that. Now, before anyone gets on my case here about jumping on the bandwagon, okay, I'd just like to make one point very clear. I'm not jumping on any bandwagon here, because I created the fucking bandwagon. Yes, I, along with my good friend SJW101, his channel is linked below, go and check him out, seriously, he makes better content than I do. Just fucking click on his fucking link and subscribe and all the rest of it, otherwise I'll send Rory Katz round and he will fuck you up. He won't actually, because he's asleep. But anyway, go and check out SJW101. Now, he and I, we both created videos over a year ago now, exposing those clips that I just showed you a moment ago. So we were on the story fucking well over 12 months before the mainstream media got involved. So we're not jumping on the bandwagon, because we were on the fucking bandwagon before anyone else. So anyway, yeah, like I say, I made a video over 13 months ago now, it seems, called Milo Yiannopoulos, Hypocrite and Pedophile Protector. And then the story just went cold for months and months and months, and I didn't really think anything more about it, to be honest, because I just thought, well, they're just going to put up with whatever from Milo. It seems that no level of scumbaggery is too much for him. Then on the 19th of February, my Twitter notifications fucking exploded with people telling me that a guy called Jake Tapper, who is a CNN news anchor, so like a big fucking proper big time news journalist chap in America, had tweeted out a video which contained parts of my video. As you can see, the tweet that was originally sent out was by a group called the Reagan Battalion, so not natural allies of mine, but whatevs. And it was clips from the Drunken Peasant podcast of the guys and Milo responding to my video. And it was also shared out by the likes of Ben Shapiro, and I even got my ugly mug into the Daily fucking Mail, which, although it's an absolute fucking shit rag of a paper, is a pretty big platform for a brummy twat pissing about making YouTube videos in his spare time, which include him pretending to be a French cat, for fuck's sake. The traction that was gained via that clips package sent out by the Reagan Battalion, and by Jake Tapper and all those other people, had a dramatic impact on Milo's career. Seeing him go from being a burgeoning media star, in fact actually on the Friday of that weekend, he had appeared on Bill Maher's Real Time on HBO. And by the way, whilst we're on that topic, Bill Maher's also a transphobic piece of shit, he can go fuck himself. But whatever, right, he'd been on that and it was set to be propelled into the next stratosphere of conservative dipshittery in America, right? But it saw him go from that point to career desolation in about 48 hours. It was really, really dramatic stuff. Yeah, the impact of these revelations, and like I say, it's really strange to see that the mainstream media took over a fucking year. Like, if a knobhead like me making YouTube videos in his spare time can get hold of a story like this, you'd think the mainstream media would have been able to, but whatever, anyway, right? It took them over a fucking year. That's pretty fucking worrying. But anyway, the impact of these revelations wrought utter destruction on Milo's career in three main ways. Firstly, there was this.
Within hours, the CPAC had dropped Milo as a speaker.
They got him disinvited from CPAC.
CPAC pulled Milo. They disinvited him is the word that they use. No, you gave him the fucking boot because you were afraid of some of the shit that he said.
He's been disinvited from this prestigious keynote speaking engagement he had at CPAC.
He was disinvited from CPAC.
Yes, he was disinvited from speaking at CPAC, which is the Conservative Political Action Conference, which is a fucking big deal in America. It's like the main platform for conservatism in America. In fact, actually, Donald Trump spoke there, as indeed did President Bannon. So yeah, this was a huge opportunity for Milo, potentially. It could have really propelled him onto the national and international stage in a way he hadn't been before. But he had that snatched away from him. He was no-platformed by the special snowflakes of the conservative movement. Oh, why do they insist on the safe spaces? Oh, come out of your echo chamber, you fucking cocks. I can see why they do all that kind of shit to people, because that did feel good, I'll be honest. That was nice. Now, some of Milo's supporters have levied the accusation of homophobia against CPAC as a motivation for their reason to rescind his invitation to speak there. And yes, CPAC are a bunch of fucking homophobic arseholes with a history of homophobic arseholery. But Milo isn't really in a position to complain about that because he's one of the biggest homophobes in the media.
And then you've got the ugly spectacle of preening homosexuals having renewing their vows with memories pizza boxes on stage as though that was some kind of victory. It makes me want to go out and bash queers, frankly.
Because actually, Born This Way is an invention of the gay lobby.
What?
If you go back to
You're
the
not
80s,
born this way?
No. There's no basis in science for this.
What?
If you don't want to hear about homosexuality at this time of the day.
Correct.
Or any time of the day, really.
No, out of the people who identify as lesbian, I would say 1 to 2% genuinely have no sexual interest in men. And that's because they have basically no sexual interest at all.
There's a guy out there, nice-looking young man in makeup and a wig and a dress, and his sign says Milo wants me dead. I've never said that. I've never said anything closely approaching to it. I have nothing but compassion for somebody who is clearly suffering, who's clearly ill.
If I could choose, I wouldn't be homosexual.
Really?
That doesn't make me self-loathing.
So if someone came out with a
doesn't
pill,
make me
if
self-loathing.
Pfizer
came out with a pill to make me
fucking
straight.
does.
No, it doesn't.
You don't think it makes you self-loathing to hate a part of what you are?
I don't hate a part of what I am. I love all of me, but if I could choose to be even better, then I would be.
So you'd be better if you were straight?
Yes.
Wow.
Anybody would be.
Yes, he's a homophobic homosexual, and also, not that it's particularly relevant at this occasion, but fuck it, when has that ever stopped me? He's also a white racist who loves going on about. I mean, he never shuts the fuck up about how much he loves black cock.
I was fornicating. I was fornicating with large African gentlemen.
I don't really masturbate because if I want to have sex, I'll just call a Negro. But
I didn't know whether this lovely black gentleman was a security guard or a Christmas present.
You're now with me in bed. You are where 1,000 African-American gentlemen have been before.
And all of this coming from Milo, who supposedly hates identity politics so much. What a fucking joke. The guy never stops playing identity politics, but it reached levels of true fucking absurdity when he opened up the press conference with this sentence.
I'm going to be reading from a prepared statement, and then I'll be happy to take some of your questions. I'm a gay man.
What a fucking twat. Playing the victimised minority bit now that it's convenient for him to do so. However, that tactic seemed to be adopted by most of his supporters too, when speaking in defence of his utterly indefensible comments.
You have a British gay conservative Jew who loves black dick.
They simply couldn't take another popular speech from the charismatic, interracial sex advocating faggot.
Milo's a gay Christopher Hitchens.
The gay libertarian gadfly Milo.
But the stupidest thing of all was that even though they were using Milo's sexuality as a shield for him on this occasion, they still couldn't resist the opportunity to be homophobic as fuck about it.
That when you look at schools, and you look at the recruitment, and the sexualization, the quote, gay rights, most of it is recruiting of young people.
But the thing is, I don't think he's a pedophile. I don't think he is. I think he's gay. And that gay lifestyle is kind of grimy. It's dirty. That's why I have spoken against the gay lifestyle in general.
I remember when I met Milo in Cleveland, he was on the show, I talked to him. He had that same thing of kind of a beta gay guy.
I highly doubt that he flirted with a priest, or encouraged his own abuse, or signalled that he was homosexual. I think a significant number of people who identify as homosexual are recruited, and many modern tales of vampires, zombies, and werewolves are allegories of this recruitment process.
Yep, the Man-osphere really is populated by the dregs of humanity. And speaking of the dregs of humanity, back to Milo. Yes, he is a homophobic homosexual and a white racist who loves black dick. I think it's safe to say that the accusation Milo throws at trans people of them, they're all mixed up, they've just got identity problems and blah blah blah, I think it's safe to say that that's projection on his part. But anyway, moving on. The second way in which these revelations fucked Milo's career was this.
So Publisher Weekly just tweeted out, Simon & Schuster is cancelling the publication of Dangerous by Milo Yiannopoulos.
Simon & Schuster execs suddenly decided that this dangerous faggot is too sexual for them.
Well, they cancelled his book. His book by Simon & Schuster, they cancelled that. That was about to be published, and now that is gone.
His lucrative Simon & Schuster book deal was yanked.
The Milo show is over, they laugh, dancing on the shredded paper of Yiannopoulos' $250,000 book deal with Simon & Schuster.
Yep, they cancelled his book. Simon & Schuster, the publisher, or more specifically their conservative imprint, Threshold Editions, cancelled his $250,000 book deal for his book Dangerous. Yes, they decided that whilst they were absolutely fine with his racism and transphobia and homophobia and just all-round bigoted fucking dipshittery, the advocacy for child rape was just too much, which just goes to show that this was never about freedom of speech, okay? They were just as full of shit as anyone else. Although Milo has said that he's going to continue with that and find either a different publisher, although I don't know if they necessarily is going to be able to find one of those, I'm not sure. But if not, he can always self-publish. And he has said that he's going to donate 10% of the profits to a charity that deals with victims of childhood sexual abuse. Which in of itself you would think, well, that's something of a victory. That's something better than the situation that was previously there, right? If not for the nagging doubt that this is just going to end up like the Milo Yiannopoulos Privilege Grant, which was a fund set up by Milo, and people donated to, his fans donated to this, to send white men to, white young men to college. Sort of a kind of a reverse version of positive discrimination, or affirmative action, I believe they call it in America. But the thing is, no grants were ever actually given out, and Milo just pocketed the money because he might just be a little bit corrupt as fuck. But no, I'm sure he'll definitely donate the money this time. Honest. But anyway, yeah, the third and potentially most damaging way in which these revelations fucked up Milo's career was this.
He's resigned from his influential position at Breitbart.
Yes, he was forced to resign from his job as a journalist at Breitbart News, which was clearly him jumping before he was pushed, because even before he'd resigned, there were stories coming out that there were several Breitbart employees at their London office that had threatened to resign and walk out if Milo wasn't fired. And whilst we could be generous and suggest that Milo resigned to avoid the embarrassment and potential damage to Breitbart of them having to sack him and then potential backlash from his fans and all the rest of it and a media big huge kerfuffle or whatever, right? I get the impression from Milo's kind of general personality that what's most likely to have happened is that they brought him into the office in order to fire him, and he went, "You can't fire me, I'm resigning, I'm leaving," and then stormed out, like the man baby he is, which would be the only appropriate response really for such a huge fan of Donald Trump. And he really is a huge fan of Donald Trump. He actually calls him Daddy, which is interesting because that's what Donald Trump calls Vladimir Putin. But anyway, yeah, so he lost his speaking slot at CPAC, which really could have propelled his career onto the next level. He lost his $250,000 book deal, and ultimately lost his job and is now an unemployed fucking bum. Seriously, get on your bike and look for work, you lazy fucking bastard. Now, the reactions to these revelations from within the manosphere depended on their levels of homophobia, anti-Semitism, religious persuasion, and sort of general position within the alt-right. But broadly speaking, they can be separated out into three main reactions. The first was the morally outraged, albeit mostly faux outrage, outright condemnation.
What I am saying is this. I believe that Milo is perverted, based on what I see in his conversation with these other individuals. What I'm saying, though, is I have zero tolerance for people who are fucking perverts.
I'm happy enough if I never see or hear him again.
Oh, fuck you, Milo. Seriously, fuck you. You made me agree with Richard Spencer, a guy who I enjoy watching get punched in the fucking face.
Pepe's become kind of a symbol.
I mean, you have to have done something truly disgusting for me to agree with that neo-Nazi frog-loving fuck. And the second, slightly more popular reaction to Milo's horrific fucking pronouncements on child rape was basically a kind of begrudging admonishment.
I think Milo was wrong, but I understand the thinking that leads him to be wrong.
There's not much of a defense for that. Not really. I'm racking my brain. I'm trying to think of some way, some objective way that, you know, there's some way to defend against it, but there's not. There's just not.
And so in dealing with what's going on with Milo Yiannopoulos, it's tough. I mean, I hate having to say all of this. On the one hand, I sympathize. On the other hand, I'm angry.
Before I criticize Milo Yiannopoulos, I just wanted to say that I like Milo.
Yeah, this position was pretty cowardly, really. Not as cowardly as the one we're going to get to in a moment, but it was still pretty bad because basically they knew that what he had said was totally fucking wrong, but the political hackery within them was just too fucking strong. And this reaction can be best summed up by what Lauren Southern said when she appeared on Dave Rubin's right-wing circle jerk Happy Time Fun Hour.
He is not a pedophile. He doesn't support pedophilia. I will never believe that. However, I understand how people looking in on the situation reacted that way. Mm-hmm. And I understand how I would have reacted if it were a Democrat that did this.
I mean, she basically openly admits there that if this was a political opponent who had said that, she'd have fucking crucified them. But no, it's Milo, so she's just going to go with it. I mean, what a partisan fucking joke. She calls herself a fucking journalist. Fuck off. And the third and most popular reaction from the manosphere towards what Milo had said was just outright acceptance of and making excuses for what he'd, the horrific shit that he'd fucking said in those clips.
The hateful left, whose most effective weapon is character assassination, has created a gotcha culture for conservatives.
Desperately trying to remove this fearless figure from the stage, they hurled venom, saying he spread hatred.
And so I'm simply trying to get people to realize that the media acting like they're all concerned about Milo is a distraction from the bigger issues going on and an attempt to start censoring the alt-right.
Where is the outrage at the real injustice here?
Yeah, the fucking bullshit is strong with these guys. I mean, the very same people who railed against Sarah Nyberg and had a massive fucking explosion of faux outrage at Salon.com and whoever else, right? Those very same people are making excuses for Milo's advocacy for, or at the very least making excuses for, child rape. I mean, they should feel fucking ashamed of themselves. I mean, any normal person would be able to feel ashamed, but I know these fuckers aren't really capable of showing any other emotions than anger, fear, and fucking hatred. But anyway, before we leave the reactions portion of this video, there was one element of the reaction from the manosphere that I did want to highlight, and that was, of course, the conspiracy theory dipshittery.
Listen, I have no stock in Milo. I have no stock in Breitbart. If you looked at it from a pure libertarian conservative talk show position, oh, Milo falls, I'll get bigger. But that's not true. I disagree with a lot of what Rush Limbaugh says and does. But he's openly admitting the deep state, a term I've been using for decades.
I know what comes after this. If you don't take their warning, if the deep state, whatever is coming after Milo, I think it's the same actors, forces, at least in the media, that came after me. If you don't listen to their warning and keep doing it, they're going to fuck you up.
Yes, the so-called deep state, which is basically a replacement they've come up with for the term Illuminati, which they know has become quite rightly associated with conspiracy theory fucking nonsense. So they basically tried to rebrand it as the deep state, because they thought, well, we've had so much success with rebranding fucking far-right neo-Nazi scumbaggery as the alt-right. Oh, we'll try that same trick again with Illuminati. And of course, the deep state concept is basically precisely the same as the Illuminati, with all the usual fucking fevered imaginings of secret cabals and the usual attendant anti-Semitism that comes along with the thinking involved with all of these fucking arseholes. So yeah, look out for deep state to become one of their regular talking points in the future, and now you know what it is. And the more you know, the more depressed you become for the state of humanity.
Ricketts, say cheese. I used a video the whole time. Fucking idiot.
Now, to wrap up, I'd like to take you through a few of the pieces of fucking bullshit from Milo's press conference where he resigned from Breitbart, because the levels of disingenuousness and just fucking outright bullshit were ridiculous.
I'm a gay man and a child abuse victim.
Now, whilst both of those statements are true, he is a gay man and he is a victim of child rape, the fact that he led off the press conference with, "I'm a gay man," is clear and obvious identity politics being played by someone in the most hypocritical way possible. Because one of his main points that he keeps banging on and on about constantly is identity politics is terrible and blah 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 blah. And yet that's the first thing he says in defence of himself, trying to use his homosexuality as a shield from criticism. Ridiculousness. And yes, he is a victim of childhood sexual abuse. But the thing is, he's only now decided that that's the case, because previously, as we saw from those clips, he didn't think he was a victim. In fact, he actually described himself as the predator in the scenario with the priest. And he's kind of a version of Schrodinger's douchebag, whereby he was sort of essentially an apologist for child rape until he got called on it, and he's now using his victimhood status as a shield against criticism. So even though he is actually a victim, this is a classic case of playing the victim card, which again is massively hypocritical because he constantly has to go at other people for playing the victim card. But that's precisely what he's doing now. He's saying, you can't criticise me, I'm a victim. And that's bullshit, because what you are doing is perpetuating the abuse of other people, and indeed in some cases condoning and advocating for it. That's disgusting.
But I am sorry to other abuse victims who may have interpreted what I said as flippant or uncaring.
Milo, that's not an apology. You're putting the blame on the other person for misinterpreting or whatever your words. You're not apologising for what you did. You are saying, I'm sorry if you fucked up in this case. That isn't an apology. And if you don't apologise, then you can't actually expect forgiveness, because you're not accepting that you did anything wrong.
I shouldn't have used the word boy. Gay men often use boy or girl to mean men of consenting age. But I understand how heterosexual people may not have realised that, and that was an error. I was in fact talking about my own relationship when I was 17 with a man who was 29.
Now that's a lie by omission, because you didn't just say boys, you said young boys. And you weren't just talking about your own personal experience, you were clearly referring to, sort of generally, the relationships between young boys and older men.
If I knew someone around my age that was like, I just had sex with a 13-year-old, I would be creeped out, honestly.
Yeah, what is your age? What is your age?
I'm almost 35.
Okay, well, I'm talking about 28-year-olds.
Oh, well.
Oh, okay. Well, that changes everything.
Well, it's arbitrary and oppressive idea of consent, which totally destroys, the understanding that many of us have of the complexities and subtleties and complicated nature of many relationships. People are messy and complex, and actually, in the homosexual world particularly, some of those relationships between younger boys and older men, the sort of coming-of-age relationships, the relationships in which those older men help those young boys to discover who they are and give them security and safety and provide them with love and a reliable and sort of a rock where they can't speak to their parents. Some of those relationships are some of the most
molestation to me. It sounds
well,
like
you know what?
It sounds like Catholic priest molestation to me.
And you know what? I'm grateful for Father Michael. I wouldn't give nearly such good head if it wasn't for him.
Oh my God! Oh my God! I can't handle it.
You are advocating for cross-generational relationships here. Can we be honest about that?
Yeah, I don't mind admitting that.
So yeah, you were in fact advocating for, defending and making apology for child rape. So fuck off, you absolute piece of shit. Right, that's it. I'm finished with this topic, and I'm fucking so done with this frosted-tipped arsehole. So yeah, was there any schadenfreude in me producing this video? Yeah, a little bit. I can't say that I feel remotely sorry for Milo, given the horrific shit that he's pulled on innocent people, and basically anyone who mildly disagreed with him in any way whatsoever, for the entirety of his professional career. So yeah, I don't feel sorry for him in the slightest for finally getting his comeuppance. It's long overdue. So that's all I have to say on this one, really. So to Milo Yiannopoulos and to all of the Manospherians, go fuck yourselves.
Taking all my dough, left me in my stately home, lazing on a sunny afternoon. And I can't sail my yacht, he's taking everything I've got. All I've got's this sunny afternoon. Save me, save me, save me from this squeeze. Got a big fat mama trying to break me, and I love to live so pleasantly, live this life of luxury, lazing on a sunny afternoon in summertime, in summertime. Run off with my car and gone back to her mom and pa, telling tales of drunkenness and cruelty. Now I'm sitting here, sipping in my ice cold beer, lazing on a sunny afternoon. Well, help me, help me, help me sail away. Two good reasons why I ought to stay, 'cause I love to live so pleasantly, live this life of luxury, lazing on a sunny afternoon in summer.